Here, I think. Hey, good
Hi.
morning. It's Lauren from Portfolio Rocket, and I've been playing with my little gizmo over here, and I am so excited. So excited. If you're here today, and I hope you are, and happy Wednesday, hump day, blast and a half. And we have an incredible guest today talking about something that is something I hear about all the time. I get clients and people that are saying, I want to design for good and I want to be part of a mission and I want to, work for a purpose-driven brand. And there is no one better to talk about this than our special guest today, Kristen Knape. And that's how you spell it, Knape. You pronounce every single piece of her last name. And she is the executive director of purpose and strategy for David and Goliath. So thank you so much for coming and joining us so early from Los Angeles. So a whopping 6:30 a.m. And thank you for bringing your coffee too, so we can all stay awake with our Java. And please introduce yourself and share with us a little bit about David and Goliath, who they are, and what they do.
Great. That's awesome. So hi everyone. My name is Kristen Knape. Yes, I am the executive director of purpose and strategy, which is such an exciting term. My journey has been really interesting because I'm by trade a strategist, have been for over 22 years. And that has evolved over time as the world has evolved around us. So it's less, I guess, about like just doing strategy to put the ads out in the world. And it's more about really understanding what brands are and how they can show up in the world in better ways. We can get into maybe more of that later. But David and Goliath is a phenomenal agency that I've been at for 9 years. They've been in existence for over 21 years. And their whole purpose is kind of around being a challenger brand with an empathetic spirit. So we balance those two things together. So we understand
A challenger brand.
Yeah.
With
an empathetic spirit.
Oh,
yeah. So it's a lot of fun. We really want to make sure that we understand what a brand is, but also why it matters to people. So we really balance those things together. We work on brands, everything from Kia to Jack in the Box to the California Lottery to Frito-Lay, PepsiCo, Jollibee. We have some really phenomenal clients.
Fantastic. And I've seen some of the work. If you haven't checked out David and Goliath, the agency, go to their website, because not only is the copy very, very clear, but the work is stunning, and great case studies as well. So I want to start helping our audience better define what does purpose-driven mean. I think that there are a lot of maybe naysayers or people that are like, why do brands need purpose? Or I'm dying to get into it, but I'm not really sure like how to match my purpose with a purpose-driven opportunity. So please go for it.
Yeah, I could talk about this for hours. So I think if you think about 2020 and 2021, I think brand purpose has gotten a pretty bad rap in some ways, but I am like a fighter to keep it on the table. It's been bruised. It's been bruised because, agencies, clients are working very hard to understand what purpose means and is trying to put things out into the universe. And I really want to kind of first applaud those clients that are doing that, because they're doing it with the best intentions. And I think what's happening, and what I want to put out in the universe, is the rants and the cynicism are not helpful. It actually creates this like stifling effect of like, oh my gosh, I want to, bring good out in the world. I don't know how to exactly do that authentically. I'm going to do my best. And sometimes they're going to falter. But let's like come together and really try to get these brands to do the best work that they can. So when I talk about purpose, I know we've talked a little bit about this, but it's not so much about what the industry calls CSR or corporate social responsibility or philanthropy, if you'll say it. So oftentimes in the past, that would be kind of a box that would be checked. It would be on the side. It would be a foundation that was given to. That's not what we're talking about. It can be a part of the purpose, but it's not the complete thing. Purpose serves everyone. When you have a purpose within your organization first and foremost, it motivates your employees. And that's really, really important to know because they show up every day for your business because they want to believe in who they are and what they bring back to their families. So that's the number one thing. And of course, purpose also serves the public when they understand what they're buying and not just what they're buying, but why, how they're buying it. It also allows them to feel better about their consumerism and how they're, basically connecting to the world.
So
And
how
then,
is it different? How do we make sure you corporate aren't just checking the box with your obligation for, a corporate kind of responsibility and are really delivering on purpose driven?
yeah, it's a really great question. I truly feel most brands that have been in existence for even just a little while, marketing sometimes can get the way of their truth. And so what we need right now is kind of to excavate back why you existed in the first place and then create a roadmap for how that shows up in the world. So I know that sounds really basic, but if you go back into time on why something launched in the world, there was a core reason. That there was a purpose. There was a reason it was successful. So let's just get down to that part. And then you can start bridging, okay, if I'm about X, then I can show up in society as Y. It allows for a really pretty seamless mapping. It's not necessarily easy to do, but once you get it down, people, again, understand why they're showing up for their job, understand why you're putting it into marketplace. And also, you can be more reactive when society's like, oh my gosh, who can help me with this? So I can give an example if that's helpful.
Please.
Okay.
Please.
So one of my favorite clients, don't tell the other ones, is Stacy's pita chips because they have a very, very specific societal role, which is to amplify women and their talents. And they get to say that because they are a female founded brand. And so when they show up, they want to make sure that they're helping others do what was done for them. So when by having that as a heart, when COVID happened, we were able to actually create kind of a campaign-like object, if you will. It's not a traditional campaign where we actually passed the mic to female-founded businesses because they were disproportionately hit by the pandemic due to a lot of the traditional female roles, which is so wild. So very quickly, Stacey's showed up and was able to provide not just grants to businesses, but also to help with their advertising, to actually hand over their media to make sure that these women businesses were still being frequented. They reserved, space on their bags to, make sure that consumers could find out where female founded businesses were. It's that is such a powerful way of thinking about business, but it all comes from their brand truth. Is like they are female founded business, so they want to now amplify other female founded businesses.
And so now we're eating Stacy's pita chips, which I was out for dinner with a friend and we were talking about this episode and she's like, oh, Stacy's not allowed in my house anymore because I eat so many Stacy's pita chips. So what I want to understand is, tell us the ripple effect of all the tie-ins with Stacy's because I know that it is far and wide, and I want to use this as a stunning example because if you haven't had Stacy's pita chips before, run, don't walk, and share with us the spill out of what has happened as a result.
Yeah, so with that, it actually is continuing. They have something that they've been doing for a while called the Rise Project, and it is basically getting behind female-founded businesses. It started with food and beverage because that's obviously Frito-Lay's forte. But as the need arose to really get behind other female-founded businesses, they actually kind of used the framework of like what businesses are out there helping the community, and let's help them first because here they are like sacrificing their, let's just call it their supply chain to make sure that society is okay. So it's time for us to get back behind them. What that did is it created an expansive database for this female founder, business model, in which it continues today, in which it's thousands of businesses that you can go to, and they continue to think about, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? So is that what you mean? Like in terms of like the growth of that?
Yeah, like the Rise project, right? And all of the amazing kind of collaboration that has happened with women across multiple cultures, and just, you know, bringing this together. And Stacy's is obviously the backdrop for this, but what ends up happening is that the outward facing piece are the people who are celebrating women's energy.
Exactly. Exactly. In that time period, Stacey's was just a bit of a rapper, obviously, that's still there, but the content was actually the female-founded businesses. Yes,
Shout out
agreed.
from Gabe. Thank you so much for the cinnamon and sugar pita chips.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're dangerous and great. And also, I do want to just mention that Gabe also has a question. So, if you have a longtime brand that you want to rebrand with a new purpose, how would you approach changing your brand, your image, and your values? I think this is a great question.
Ooh, it's so fun and so rich. You know, I can't tell you how important it is that it doesn't just come from the marketing team, that it is a top down and a down up approach. And what I mean by
Mm.
that is when we start this type of process and we have, is you basically create a system in which you get everyone in the room. You start talking about where you think the brand is going. You create consensus for that. You get people excited about the possibility. You showcase basically how it goes from, just profits to purpose and how that can leap back into profits. And the reason why I say top down is people are always looking up to see, what is possible for me. So, if it just stops at the marketing team, you feel that. You feel that as a consumer, you feel that as an employee. So that's that. And then from that standpoint, in my world, you actually start creating brand architectures, messaging systems, things along those lines to help create a framework to work within. But it needs to be loose enough too, basically as society needs you to be able to kind of shift or adjust, as well as ideally getting consumer participation. So what we've seen in the last year is purpose is not driven by the company always. It's also driven by the society that needs them. So hear them out, have them participate in it, give them a pathway to participation. So if you're about play, it doesn't have to be serious. Like you could be about, you know what, the world needs more play out there, like our California lottery business. So it's like, okay, so how are you proving that out in the world? What instruments are you going to give people so they can actually facilitate play beyond your brand, because that's your core of your being. We're in those conversations right now. It's so much fun. That's purpose.
Exactly. I love that you incorporated this because, of course, today we're talking about purpose-driven brands, but I think that the parallel structure of purpose and going back to the why it exists to begin with is something that I am, somewhat hell-bent um, about with job seekers, right? Why are you doing this in the first place? Right. And so if you don't know that for your brand and for your personal brand, that purpose is diffused. And I think that that's really where, the rubber meets the road, right? And when it has that root system, so many things can grow from it. And I just absolutely am excited because anybody who is watching this can use this for both purposes, whether you are in a role and want those driving that change, or whether it's you personally. I love this. Tegan's in love with your glasses. And she also did a huge shout out for Stacy's and the Rise Project. So thank you so much for that. Yes. I want to ask you a question that I posed prior to coming in here, which is in this post-COVID world, or trailing out COVID world, how does purpose, how is it different now than it was perhaps, or is it different than what it was prior to that time? What is the impact of everything that has happened in our society? I know this is a huge question to put on your shoulders at 6:45 in your morning, but I'm curious because this is, if we're talking about the impact of society, how does this reflect, and what are you sharing as kind of a skeleton for your clients to think about?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And again, the last 2 years have really pivoted. I listened actually to a Harvard Business review about like actually a podcast about hiring right now and how they're basically recommending to throw everything away, strip down everything you know, and rebuild your systems because consumers and employees are demanding it. And I say it's almost the same for brands right now. You don't have to throw away everything, but just really scrutinizing it. And you know this about me, it's not about being cynical, it's about being critical. So if you're cynical about, oh gosh, brand purpose, what does that mean? Da, 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 da. I'm scared because of what I've seen other brands do. That's going to make you freeze. But instead, be critical of how you show up in the world. And again, let's all be forgiving of what that can be. You know, in an ideal world, I see 2022 and going forth is really where brands might start working together to showcase what corporate citizenship can stand for. Because I think right now they're kind of one-off case studies. You know,
Mm.
awards being created for it. I love Ben and Jerry's. They always show up in every single case study. But what I'm really looking for is, what can we do to start changing the conversation for brand purpose to be a positive conversation and not a cynical one? And, it's like anything from like, is there a shared commitment between brands instead of a competitive one, knowing that society
Mm.
really needs us right now? Or is it one in which, trusted consumers, or their fan base shows up in a way and helps these brands create a pathway to the societal change that everyone wants to see in the world right now? And if I can throw one more out, um,
Please.
another pathway that we've been exploring at our agency is the connection between two hot words, purpose and culture. They're both overused. And I think the magic is actually in blending those two things together. We have Jack in the Box as a client. When COVID hit, they also rose to the occasion, but in their own way, they had chicken scented masks that made it fun and created a very we're in a
Who is
very
this?
Jack in the Box. Yeah, it was so much fun.
Chicken scented masks. Okay.
Mhm.
And explain how the chicken scented masks, because I don't know a lot of people that have heard about that before, um, was able to not only drive the fun aspect and certainly some curiosity, but what was the purpose behind that, and how did it impact a larger meaning?
Well, I guess it's two sides, right? The purpose side is society was needing to wear masks, right? It was a pivotal time. It was actually hard to come by some of them. Now they didn't create them in mass, but it became a promotional tool to kind of give it some cool factor. It ended up being on Drew Barrymore's show and things along those lines. So it was able to create some traction and give light to the fun that it can be to have a mask instead of kind of being like this thing that I have
Mm.
to put on, and to create that conversation. What a really phenomenal way. So as I work with a phenomenal fellow, Blake Winfrey, who's the chief of social impact. And so he's kind of the creative side and I'm the strategy side. And we talk about this all the time. Like, how do we make these important things cool things? And so I think that's also where we'll see the future go, is where these things are blended instead of being so separate. It isn't just a philanthropy, checking the box. It's how do you blend your true brand flavor? Like Jack in the Box didn't have to change who they were. They still showed up exactly how they are in their silly, fun, unpredictable ways, and brought some value into the conversation.
So I do really love this, because taking the sting out of things, like in this case, right? Yes, we would like you to wear a mask, but if you can make the mask something that is much more approachable, fun, and almost a little irreverent, right? I think that it takes on a much lighter load than the
Exactly.
enforcement of saying you must do this, right? And so I love what you said here, making important things, cool things, and the blending of purpose and culture. So I think that is huge. And, I again bring this back to job seekers, because your purpose and what I know can be often the most dreaded task in the world, which is finding your next new role, doesn't have to be laden with all kinds of arduous process. You can make it fun. I gamify everything, me personally, because I believe that it is a little bit of a scavenger hunt. And we've all played video games, we've all done other things that have those elements to it. So why not gamify this process and blend those two things together? So I also really want to ask you about your, in your opinion, your advice. So many people say that they want to do this. How do they actually get, either working at a great agency like David&Goliath that specializes it? How does this filtrate over into corporate America for in-house teams? How does this element, I don't know a lot of people, and maybe I just haven't seen it yet, that have titles like purpose and strategy. Is that growing, and how does the world at large be qualified to earn those positions?
Such a great question. So, it's not that I graduated from college with a purpose title, so I think
Right.
now, it probably depends a little bit on your level, but I think every single person can show up wanting to provide a more purpose-driven way of working. And what that means for me and it's like very humble advice. We all have personally what we want to contribute to the world. We have our own issues, our own hot topics. I say go for that in your personal time and make sure that when you're aligning with a brand, that you're not trying to find that sweet spot of like, I'm into environmental causes, so I must find an environmental brand. You can, but it's very limiting for you. If purpose matters to you, you have the opportunity to integrate purpose into any brand on the planet if they're open to it, so make sure that that's a value to them or a value that they're interested in. And why I say that is there's something that's very dear to Blake and my heart, which is we operate off of this principle that's called the platinum rule. We did not come up with it. It's fabulous though. So everyone knows being raised that it was all about the golden rule, like do unto others as you would want to be done to you, right? But the platinum rule actually takes it up a notch. It says, do unto others as they want to be done. Because the truth is, what matters to you does not matter to everyone. And so, as a strategist, especially, it's like I have to take myself out of it and look at what society needs in relationship to that brand, and that it makes sense for the brand and it makes sense for society, not myself. But that's so much fun. I get to learn about all sorts of issues, everything from, environmental issues to the creator economy to how to help, eliminate plastics off the earth to, I mean, all sorts of things. And then I get to hear about it through the lens of of the people it really matters to, and of course, general society. So the reason why I bring that up is if you're looking for a job, it really widens your pathway when you can look at it through that lens of any brand can really use purpose right now, bring that voice to the table, bring the statistics. I'm not a very good statistician in terms of like rattling them off, but there's a bazillion of them out there in terms of how this works. And yeah, so I hope that answered most of your questions. If you
We have a hearty yes for the platinum rule from Tegan, and what I want to say is, there was this expression like years ago, like be the ball, right? So if you are about purpose, be a part of a purpose, be like demonstrate that, because you don't have to come from, like you said, a college background or a graduate degree in purpose, because it's emerging. It's not like fully baked yet. but that won't stop you if that's really embedded into your DNA and you want to. And I'm just curious, does that bode for volunteering? Does that bode for like if I say, okay, you know what, Kristen, I have a purpose and I want to, I volunteer at, Greenpeace or any of these other organizations. Does that start? I mean, I'm not doing it for my resume value. I'm doing it because this is my thing. So is that part of the validation and the credibility behind that?
It's a great question. I would say yes and no. So for many people, especially if you're not getting that purpose within your job, sometimes you have to go outside of that, live it, and then bring it into it. Especially in advertising agencies, there are always pro bono opportunities to bring our time and talent to those types of projects. And I highly recommend people go pursue their purpose outside of their careers. When you're inside your career, why I'm creating that distinction is, again, to use a platinum rule. Don't try to bring your needs into the brand business, because that needs to stay really pure, as much as possible, because that's where authenticity is built. You can't have your brands going every which way depending on who's working on it. So um, for me, I actually do limited volunteering now. I actually ran a nonprofit for 3 years, so or helped run it. Actually, co-found it and run it, and it's a lot of work, And I appreciated, the pounding the ground for money and making sure, we were raising money for all these amazing nonprofits. And the thing that hit me after the 3 years is that, man, what I and my team and the founder of the company, what we did in 1 year, any large corporation could do in 1 day. And I was unsettled by that. So what I've done is, instead of focusing my time and talents on philanthropy, I'm moving that into corporate responsibility and towards a corporate citizenship, because I want to see that gap, a little bit closed. And so that's my time, because I also have family and interests and things along those lines. So I can't do it all. So I have to be very particular in how I spend my time. And I love what I do. So, and I'm giving that range so people don't feel like purpose means that you have to live it outside of the house. If you're doing all you can within your job, like, bravo, we need corporations to step up right now. We need those dollars to help fix what government can't right this second. And we'll figure it out together.
I really love that. And thank you so much, Catherine McConnell. I've learned a lot of hard lessons the past few years about my volunteer work. Not only do I love the mission, I also need to feel uplifted by other people and how we are working versus feeling drained and exasperated. And this is kind of a real hitting me right here between the eyes and in the middle of my heart, because it's completely counterintuitive. When you're feeling like crap and life is throwing you a lot of lemons, the last thing you want to do is go and help somebody else, right? Because usually I'm in my pity committee and I want to just sulk in there.
Yeah.
But the antidote is to go do something to help somebody else.
100%.
It never, ever, ever has failed me. Not once. I forget about myself, and then I am like lifted up. I've volunteered at jails. I've done a lot of service work by virtue of the lifestyle that I live, which is, a sober lifestyle. I'm very proud of it, but it has shown me that having a purpose that is, outside of myself is really, it doesn't, to your point, have to be like I'm, signing up to be the next Gandhi or anything like that. I get to, keep it on a smaller scale and use every opportunity to make an impact for service as it's easy to do. I mean, literally something as simple as holding the door for somebody is an act of service. So you can start really small. I really, what would you, in the last minute or so, what would you offer up as a way for anyone coming out of this live today, you know, in the middle of October, what is the one thing that you wish that everyone would take away from this and implement?
The platinum rule. It is everything. It's because working in philanthropy, and there's a lot of books on this. It's serious though. It's sometimes when people are doing things out of their own motives, they're actually creating the counter effect. There's an opposite effect that happens with philanthropy specifically. So when you operate off of the platinum rule, actually rolling up your sleeves and working with society and not being the hero is so critical, because that hero mentality is actually what consumers are calling bluff on, you know?
What are they
Uh,
calling it?
huh? They're
What are
calling
they
bluff
call
on it.
Bluff on it.
Yes, yeah, right. I think that was actually the title of this, or Fluff, yeah. So so there's that aspect, because it's not matching up to what society actually needs. And then for the beneficiaries of whatever you're trying to accomplish, they feel it too. I'm not actually being heard. That's not what I actually need. And in fact, I don't want to be considered a victim. I want to be empowered. So that hero dynamic creates a lot of othering that's super negative. So I can't stress it enough. Basically, as much as possible, do unto others as they want to be done unto them.
Right. I love that. And I also added in here to remove your agenda. Your motives and your agenda are great, but they may not necessarily serve a larger purpose. So, you know, go back, examine your motives and what you're trying to drive as your agenda in order to quote unquote make this happen. I think that what you've talked about before is the opportunity to really listen to what the needs are and then where you can match them, not necessarily to have other people match your needs.
Exactly.
That platinum rule is awesome. Thank you, Kristen, for coming on the show, for being such a wonderful catalyst in the world of purpose, for being so articulate about it. And I mean, if you are not following Kristen, definitely go on to LinkedIn. And also, please check out David and Goliath. Shout out to you guys all there, and thank you for everything. But I will just absolutely take that with me, and I hope everyone else does too. If you have any further questions about purpose, you can either reach out to me, and I will probably end up fielding them through Kristen, since she is our subject matter expert on this, and I really appreciate you coming on the show today. So hang out a little bit after the show, and thank you. I know that this has helped me, and I know so many others. So have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you all.
Bye, everybody. Happy Wednesday.